Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 2 of our Mastery Performance podcast. We are joined with the same people as last time, Ashley, the lead consultant and also co-founder, and Maddie, one of our consultants. Today, we are going to be going over Maddie's story about how she got into not only sports psychology, but also got intermingled with us at Mastery. So, Maddie, let's start off with when did you hear about sports psychology? Because for Ashley, last time it was kind of during college. She took that one class and was like, "Oh wow, this is it, right? I missed out on this, and I need to know more about this." When did that happen for you?
So I knew I wanted to do something specifically with athletes and because I guess I'll backtrack just a little bit. In high school, I struggled with my own mental health, and I went to counseling, and I was talking with different people about the life stresses I was going through and just things that were happening. And what they didn't understand was how big of an impact sports were on my life. And so it was really hard to have conversations with them about it because at that time, sports were my life. I was in 2 different ones. I was constant, a year-round athlete, just going all the time. And it's stressful. It gets very stressful if you've been doing that for a long time. And the counselors and the therapists were like, well, it's just a game. Why don't you take a step back? And it was really incredibly hard for me to find help from the counselors and therapists who were talking to me like that. So from then I knew I was like, I have to do something with athletes. That shouldn't be a thing. There's no reason that athletes shouldn't have an outlet or help where people can actually relate to them on the fact that sports are their life. For some people, like professional athletes, it's their livelihood. It's the way that they make an income. And then for other people, it's them getting into college. That was my biggest thing. I knew I was going to go to college, but I mean, I wanted to go and play sports. And so having that scholarship on top of continuing my sports for as long as I could, that was my ticket in. From high school, I knew I have to help athletes somehow, but I had no idea about sports psychology. So I went into my freshman year of college, and I was a bio pre-med major because I was like, I have no idea. So for the first 2 years, I was in biology, taking classes because I loved science. I was doing fine with them. And then we had to take extra classes on top of our major classes. And I had taken a class with one of my professors. He was one of my other elective professors for another psychology class, and I really liked him. And he was really active in athletics, and I saw him around all the time. So I was like, I'll just keep taking his classes. I really like them. And so my sophomore year, we were just kind of going through the different types of psychology, and that's when I first heard about sports psychology, and I was like, wow, that is literally hitting the nail right on the head. But our school that I went to didn't have a sports psychology program. So I was like, whatever, I have to switch to psychology regardless. If that's what I'm going to do, I got to switch. So I switched my major and then just kind of fully immersed myself in everything. So I started reading up on it, got fully immersed into sports psychology. I started doing my own research, and I took another class by the same professor it was an intro to sports psychology class, and I just truly loved every single second of it. It's my one class that I actually truly enjoyed going to and just hoped wouldn't end. So I changed my major, and I really tried to stick with sports psychology as much as I could. I even did my so I was in the honors program, and we had to do a senior seminar, and I did mine on athlete burnout. So I really it didn't end at that class. It was constant. I was reading books. I was listening to podcasts. I was listening to TED Talks. I still have them on my phone, actually, TED Talks from sports psychology professionals and everything, and just truly, truly ran with it. And I think the thing that really kind of got me into it the most was the fact that I needed help myself through college. And so I was like, I can't find the proper outlet right now. So I'm gonna help myself as much as I can. So it was kind of this is what I want to do on top of this is what I need in this moment. So I had no idea where to go with sports psychology. I was like, I just learned about this. I just found out about this. Like, I don't know what the top programs are. I don't know where to go. So I literally Googled top sports psychology graduate programs in the US. And I think Mankato was like number 4 or 5. And I was like, wow, affordable. I love Minnesota. And the biggest kicker, I know we talked about in the first one, was it had applied work. And it was accepting more than like 4 people for a cohort. So I was like, check, check, check. Like I'm gonna really try for that one. Put in an application, and like about a month and a half, 2 months after I put in the application, I got a call from the head professor at Mankato, and we did kind of a phone interview. And I found out that I was the 15th out of 15 people in the cohort, and it was just, yeah, a huge weight lifted off my chest, but also like, okay, I'm doing this now. Like there's no going back. This is it. I'm in it now. So went 2 years through grad school and got 350 of my 400 hours that I needed. So still continuing to work and do the process before I can become certified, so I can really get my feet immersed in the whole sports psychology world.
Well, that's awesome. So let's go back to college for a second, really quick. Did you ever find a resource that was willing to work with you or able to work with you on the sport? So once you found out about it, I'm assuming this was pretty early, especially if you had time to switch majors. So did you find somebody that could help you or talk you through things?
Yeah. So the professor that I was talking about, he was actually getting his PhD in sports psychology at the time. So like him teaching us and talking with us, he gave us sessions. We did group sessions with him. Mental skills, I think, is just what he called it. And so I like appreciated going to those, and I took them to heart whenever we did them. And so I like started talking with him just a little bit more, because he was like trying to get the hours and he was trying to do the work for himself. So I tried to talk with him as much as I could. Just kind of like, it wasn't like professional, like I wasn't spilling everything in my heart, but it was like trying to get a little bit of help from there. But I mean, he was a busy man, so I didn't get to talk to him nearly as much as I would have liked to, but definitely spoke with him whenever I could.
Cool.
Did it help?
I thought so, but it was like again, they were like short spurts, because I'd see him in like our athletics building, and I'd chat with him for like 10, 15 minutes. So I guess like those quick brief intervention. Thank you. I could not, those words weren't coming to my mind. But yeah, brief interventions here and there. And it would have been a lot more beneficial if I was able to actually sit down with him for 30 minutes, 45 minutes at a time, and really just like talk like about personal things going on. But I didn't get that opportunity. So
Yeah. Can I ask 2 questions?
Mhm.
So the first one is about like the program you chose. Like you said, it had applied work and that was something that you were looking for in a program.
Mhm.
How did you know that you needed that? Because my point is when I was in my story, I told you that a
Mhm.
professor of mine basically was like, ask me the right questions. She's like, what do you want to
Mhm.
do? What do you want your career to look like? And she's like, go here. How
Mhm.
did you know that you wanted to go to an applied work focused program? Because I feel like some people don't know that there's like different programs out there. Some have more applied work and some don't. So like, how did you know?
So I kind of like found out what applied work was by default. So when I was going through like the schools on that list of like the top 50 programs in the US, I went to each website and was just looking through like what they have to offer. And I noticed that applied work was few and far between. And I did not know what that meant at the time. I was just like, okay, applied work. And then I went on Mankato's website, and it talked about like hands-on learning. That's the only way I learn, honestly. Like I can read from a book and I can like take tests and everything and like understand things that way, but for me to truly like be able to teach and to help and to like get the most out of it, I have to do hands-on. I have to be right in front of it. I have to be working through it. And so I found out that that's essentially what applied work is, and I was like, that's what I need. And Mankato was like the only one that offered that. So I was like, oh, okay, like they do hands-on learning. That's fantastic. So that's honestly why I chose it, not knowing that I actually needed applied work like for hours for certification. So it's kind of by default that I found out about applied work. But yeah, it was just the type of learner that I was is kind of what got me there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know there was a certification until grad school.
Right. Same.
So I was like, thank goodness. Like, my
Yes.
professor was like, go here. Because,
Hmm.
we both know people who have been to other programs that have less applied work. And it's not that they're bad
Hmm.
programs, it's just
Hmm.
they went in wanting more hands on experience and realizing, okay, there's this certification where I need 400 hours. How am I
Hmm.
supposed to get those hours in a program that doesn't provide it for me? And that usually
Right.
happens post graduation. And now that this certification is becoming more and more well known in the field, a
Hmm.
lot of people I talk to basically say that that's a huge barrier for them getting a job,
Hmm.
because what this certification is essentially like a check mark saying, hey, like, I've worked with people, like, I know
Hmm.
how to do the work versus just having the degree.
Right. 400 hours is a lot. That is a lot of time. And it's not even just like working one on one. It's like the preparation, it's getting supervised, it's talking with a mentor, it's having somebody look over your work and make sure everything's like being done ethically correct and just like as much of a benefit for your athlete as possible. It's just like 400 hours of you putting in that work so that athletes have that outlet that I didn't have, that you didn't have, that some people don't have in this moment. It's definitely like it is a daunting certification if I'm going to be completely honest. I didn't think I was going to get it. Somebody told me you don't need it to find a job. So I was like, I don't need it to find a job. But now I'm like, it's just that extra level.
I have one more question though, because I
Yeah.
said it too. My next one, I think this could be helpful for people who are like, okay, well, what do the athletes need? What service do they need? You said that this consultant worked with group work with you guys, but you wish you
Hmm.
had that one-on-one attention. As an
Yeah.
athlete who like sort of had a resource available, because I didn't have it at all. Like, I never worked with
Hmm.
a consultant myself. You had a taste of it as a
Hmm.
athlete. What is like an ideal type of work to receive? Like group work, individual
Hmm.
work, a little bit of both. Like, what do you think from an athlete perspective?
I do think a little bit of both is definitely beneficial because I loved our group sessions, and some people didn't. Some people thought they were tedious and boring, but I thought they were very insightful and very like fun because he did a lot of activities. There was always an activity in there, some like mind games that we had to do. So it was like, I thought it was fun. I got a lot out of it, and we were able to talk as a team together and like work through stuff together. So I thought that was huge on like a team perspective. And then individually, I wanted to dive more into things because like he got it with the group sessions. It's like talked about motivation, talked about confidence, talked about all this stuff that I was lacking, but it was kind of on like a broad realm, so it wasn't as personalized. So it's like I understood it and I found out about it, but I wanted to dive deeper into it so I could help out myself. So like I knew about it and I got a taste of it with the group sessions, but I just wanted that much more. When I struggled in college, I knew the stuff, like I took notes, I had the worksheets and everything that he gave us, but I like didn't know where to go. So I was looking up like motivational YouTube videos and I found out like that's not the way that I work. Like I'd listen to them and I'd watch them and I'd be like, okay, like next, like what? So I just wanted something a little bit more personalized and catered to me so I could like benefit a little bit more.
Group issues are going to be a little different anyway. You're going to deal with more like interpersonal types of things, like your
Right.
teammates, maybe, kind of
Mm-hmm.
depends on your team. But, very rarely are you going to get everybody feeling pressure all at the same time, unless
Right.
you're competing for like a really strong team, or you're
Mm-hmm.
on one of these always doing well places and such. So,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
For
Right.
sure.
let's take it back a little farther because, you entered college kind of
Mm-hmm.
needing this? What did it start in college when you were like, I need this now? My mentality got worse after high school. Was it in high school? What sport did you play? When did Maddie go, yep, I need this. This is what I need to do, and it's for this sport.
Sure. So it started my senior year of high school and like goes into college. So my senior year, we had just won state for softball my junior year, so the previous year, and I was a starter. All of us starters returned, minus like maybe 2 or 3 seniors that graduated, but like our team came back. So we had like a good team from the get-go. And I like went in with a mindset like I have to be really, really good this year. I have to be my absolute best. And I wasn't committed to any school yet. I'd gotten some looks from the state tournament and everything, but like I hadn't really found the school that I wanted to go to. So I was like, I need to get recruited. I need to go to college. Like, I got to do something. And so I just put so much pressure on myself. And that's also my senior year is the year that I quit basketball. That's a whole other basketball was a whole other beast in high school. We were very, very good, but our team, like, well, I think like 8 of our 9 seniors quit after our junior year. So it's just,
Wow.
just a mess. Yeah, oh yeah, dumpster fire.
What happened? Was it a coaching thing, or like what was it?
It was partially a coaching thing. For me, it was I fell out of love with the sport. I knew I wasn't going to go and play in college. I was a 5'4", $110 soaking wet. I wasn't going to play basketball in college.
Makes sense.
And all of us played other sports, so it wasn't like basketball was number one. Collectively, we all quit, but we all made our own decisions to quit. It wasn't like we're going to do it as a group. It was just like, you're not playing? Me either. It's kind of one of those things. But yeah, so I like wasn't a year-round athlete anymore. So I was like, shoot, I have all this time, so much free time that I can just put into softball. So I was softball night and day from summer of my junior year going into my senior year. I went to lessons 2 times a week for a half hour. Was playing as much as I could, going and hitting with my dad as much as I could. So I was just like doing the absolute most. I was working out as much as I could because I was like, I have to be the fastest and I have to be the strongest. And it got to a point where like our season came around in the spring and I was exhausted and I couldn't tell you why. I was like, I am so freaking tired. I was like, this is my senior year. This is the best year yet. I should be so like happy, so looking forward to this. But I was just not in the right mindset. I had exhausted myself just from doing the most. I was trying to do almost too much instead of just what I needed. And the too much kind of set me back, honestly. Like I said, I was just exhausted. And so my senior year of high school was probably my worst year I've ever had. And I couldn't tell you why, because I was like, I'm hitting every single day. I'm going out and I'm taking extra fly balls every single day. Like I'm doing the most. Like, why am I not performing? And so that's like I told you guys when I started going and like talking to counselors and like everybody about what was going on. And they're just like, well, just relax. Just take a step back. It's just a game. It's just a sport. And I think that like threw me through a loop even further because I was just like, these people have no idea what they're talking about, can't even relate to them. Softball is my life. Because it was like I was night and day softball like every single day. Mm-hmm. And I found people who couldn't relate to that. Like I remember talking to my mom after I went and talked to them, and God bless my mom. I love her. I said I wanted to go to a school where softball wasn't the biggest thing because I didn't want it to be my entire life. And my mom was like, are you going to play a sport in college? I said, yeah, I would like to. She's like, is it going to be softball? I'm like, yeah. She's like, it will be your entire life. Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. And I mean, that was kind of not a slap in the face, but kind of like a wake up moment. Like, it wasn't a slap in the face. It was more of like a wake up moment. Like, if I'm going to play this in college, like it is going to be, my life is going to revolve around it. And it did. I needed that, honestly, because my class schedule got shifted around it. My work schedule got shifted around it. Like it was a center of everything. It was the middle of everything that I was doing. My social life went around it. Like
Yeah.
it was my life. And so I wasn't shocked going into college because I realized like early on, because I had siblings that played in college too, that like it is your life for 4 years. It kind of like runs everything. Like can't go to all the holidays because you might have games, can't
Hmm.
go see your friends at other schools because you'll have practice. Like it's just, and that's what I signed up for. Like I knew what I was getting myself into.
So Maddie, like it's your life, right?
Mm-hmm,
You're in this identity, like you're in high school
mm-hmm,
and you're moving into college. You had a rough senior year. Let's play The Witcher really quick and let's go in the future for a
mm-hmm,
second. You're Maddie now, looking at Maddie then.
mm-hmm.
Instead of get over it, what would you say to your previous self now? At least one thing right now that you would say if you came in with the issues you were experiencing in high school.
Yeah. Um, so if somebody came in with the issues that I was having, I would literally tell them what my classmate had told me, that like too much is not always better. Like you need to do what your body needs. And so that's food, that is sleeping, and that is water, and then exercise whenever you're feeling good about it. And I did not listen to any three of those things. I think I would make a schedule. I would help them make a schedule, and then I would definitely talk about goals, like because I was just lifting and not sleeping is what I was doing, and working and hitting and just trying to get the most out of the 24 hours in a day that I had to get better. And I didn't have a goal set. Like what was I getting better for? What was I really trying to do? I didn't know. I didn't have a set goal, like to be the best.
And
That
like, what
can
does
be a
that
goal, but
mean?
it's like a little bit more specific. Like, what do I want to be the best at? Do I want to have the fastest time to first? Do I want to steal the most bases? Like, I didn't have goals set. So I was overworking my body and I didn't even know why. So thinking about like a schedule, and then definitely talking about goals, and diving into a little bit more of self-talk about like working and stuff, because it was never, and this kind of like is a hint at what goes throughout my college years too, is like I never talked nice to myself ever, because I wasn't the rah motivational type person. That's completely fine. Like not everybody is. What I thought I needed was like negative thoughts to help me, and that also wasn't the case, because I was thinking if it's not positive, it has to be negative. That's what has to get me going, and that's not the case at all either. So
Mm.
definitely goal setting and like self talk is where I would start.
Start.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
go back. Let's go back to that best really quick because Ashley chimed in there for a half a second. Was like, "What does that even mean?" And so, Ash, I'm assuming you have some thoughts
Mhm.
coming from a professional in the field viewing another athlete. What were you seeing?
Yeah, just from what you've been saying so far, my experience with a lot of athletes is that they say that I want to be the best.
Mhm.
And I ask them, what does that mean? And that's a hard question for them. And
Mhm.
usually it involves comparing themselves to like somebody else sometimes. Sometimes they compare themselves to themselves, but sometimes it's like, well, I need to be a starter. I need to have the highest stats. I need to be coach's favorite, like whatever that means. Or I need to be recruited to a D1 school. That means I'm the best, right?
Mhm.
Which is all doable goals, but like Maddie said, she needed like a focus. Like, what does that mean?
Mhm.
I would also add in there with goals, helping somebody figure out like what their strengths are. Because sometimes what I see athletes do is they try to be everything, like every
Mm.
position. Like, I'm thinking team sports. Like,
Mhm.
they want to be the best, like if for softball, best pitcher, best
Mhm.
hitter, like best everything. With other sports, like let's say hockey, they want to be like the top scorer, the number one assists, the most aggressive on defense. Like it's like you can't be everything. It's great to
Mhm.
strive for like being an amazing overall athlete. Like I think that's a good thing, but I think then that takes the focus away of like, well, what do you bring to the table? Because if what if somebody else is a high scorer that doesn't mean you didn't do well. They just had more runs than you, but you probably still bat really well, right? Like, so I think it needs to be more about like, well, why are you an amazing hitter? Not, do you have the highest stats? So that's what I would help if I were working with someone like Maddie. I would just try to help her figure out like, okay, this is what we want to achieve, but what are you already good at? Because like she said, her self-talk wasn't maybe the greatest. And it doesn't need to be motivational, like, you are amazing, but it's like, what are you amazing at? Like, why are you a starter on a state winning team? Like, there was a reason that you were at that level. What is it?
Yeah, that's very true. And like I was thinking about that earlier today where I was just like, this can sound like a lot of hoopla, right? It can sound like a lot of like, oh, fairy tales and happiness and all this stuff, but there is actual science to this. There is actual like implementation of this. This isn't just us getting on here and saying you can feel better. That helps. If you feel good, you're going to generally play better, but there's more to it. You have issues, you have things that you're thinking about, sometimes during, sometimes after, sometimes like Maddie. The first thing that I thought about with Maddie, and not even a psychologist, is rest. Like she didn't rest enough. She was out there just constantly working her body, and mental rest is just as important as her physical rest. It makes her more game ready. So in my opinion, Maddie was more prone to being injured. So there's a lot of like different, you know, areas of focus that each one of us pulled away from her, just that one story, and it could have been any of them. The benefit of having someone like you two is that you can ask pointed questions to get to the root of what it could have been or what was going on under the surface, and I want people to know that it's not just this woohoo, like we're out here kumbaya, like holding hands and singing songs. This is real. Like these issues happen to a lot of people, and you're not alone when you're dealing with some of these things. We all have gone through something. We've all gone through times where we weren't confident, and that's just part of it. So
yeah, and
Right.
to add to like the piece where Maddie was saying that like her counselor wasn't the best fit for her at the time. It's not that counselors aren't useful. It's just they weren't useful for what Maddie wanted. Think about like doctors.
Right.
You have like general surgery, you have like primary care physicians that kind of know a general little bit of everything. And then if there's something that's like beyond them or just something a little bit more niched and specific, they refer them to that doctor, an orthopedic surgeon, a dermatologist, an OBGYN. Like you got to go to the right doctor for whatever you're experiencing. And that's the same thing with psychology. Not all psychology is the same. And
Right.
even look at the, like you said, the three of us, like, even though Maddie and I have the same degree and the same qualifications, like someone might gravitate to Maddie more than they gravitate to me and vice versa. So it's just about finding the right fit. And for those of the people out there that struggle to figure out who you need, it's okay to shop around in one field, right? Like it's okay to figure out like what do I need? Who's the right fit for me? Maddie, what were you going to say?
Of course. No, I was gonna yes, I completely agree with what Ashley's saying about that. Like you can find who you need. Like there's no hard feelings about it, because like what you need, and some people are different, like what Ashley was just talking about. And to kind of like combine both Zach and Ashley, I was thinking that like part of the reason I got into it too was like I'm not a motivational person in the sense that like I need somebody to constantly be motivating me. I had motivation. I just needed something different. And so like that's the other thing with sports psychology is like there's so many different like theories, I guess, that people dive into. Like I'm very much acceptance based over CBT. I still use CBT, but I definitely think that like acceptance based helped me, and acceptance based is kind of where I like is what I use, because that's just what I found to be helpful. And that's fine if athletes don't find that beneficial. That's perfectly okay, because then they can go to somebody else who does use CBT heavily, or the humanistic approach. Like there's so many different people out there to really like cater to you, to the athlete, to get what you need most out of it. And so I think that's just kind of like what we are trying to really put out there too, is like resources are out there, and it's not, sports psychology is not just the, like what Zach was saying, the rainbows and butterflies and it's all going to be okay. It's like, no, sports are hard, sports suck sometimes, but you know what, like you're really good at them, so let's help you be even better, like on both ends, because it's not just physical, it's mental as well. Like I heard it was an ad for on one of my podcasts I was listening to. It was like, if you had to have the same car for the rest of your life and you could never change it, you wouldn't like beat it up. You would take the best care of it. And so that's your brain, that's your mind, and that's your body. Like you have the same one for the rest of your life. Like you can't beat it up. You have lapses, you need an oil change every once in a while, but it's like there's resources to help you to be the best, to have the best car, and like to get you to where you need to go,
Maddie, and both, both of you can answer this too, but just for viewers that are curious, like you were talking about a bunch of different theories in terms of how, you're the humanistic, the CBT, different ways that people can give care. Can you talk about each one of those and what the differences are, what you might expect, and like it could help somebody come into a session saying, I relate well with this way or this approach. Do you guys have anyone on staff that would be able to do that? So do you guys want to kind of talk about each one?
Sure. So I'll do acceptance based. So essentially what that one is like accepting things that have happened, but also like allowing yourself to move on. So I related to this one a lot because softball is like, it is a game of failure, and the winner of the game is the team that failed the least. And so to expect a game with no errors or no failures is like, it's almost impossible. Every time somebody gets a hit, the pitcher failed to get that out, like every time that the batter gets out, they failed to get on base, to win, to do something. So it's just it's a constant game of failure. And so to constantly be thinking like, oh my gosh, I struck out, I'm the worst, like I'm terrible, and like kind of dwelling on failures, it's just going to keep bringing you down more and more. So it's definitely like a quick switch that's like, okay, that happened, but now what? So acceptance space is very like, it happened, now what am I going to do to move on? So in life, even like I didn't get that job, instead of sitting and being like, oh my gosh, I'm the worst, like I'm never going to find my dream job. It's like accepting the fact that you didn't get that job, you didn't get that second interview or whatnot, but then setting forth a plan for yourself. Like contingency planning essentially is what I would relate a lot to acceptance based. If you need motivation, we'll talk about motivation. If you need confidence, we'll talk about confidence and like where to go from here. So it's just kind of like seeing what happened, accepting it, but then also taking the steps to move on from it, to set many goals for yourself to continue to move forward to like what you really want to get to. You get a flat tire on this bumpy road, like you're going to have to change it and you're going to keep going. So it's just like, how can we better react or
respond?
Yes, respond. Yeah. Thank you. How can we better respond to bumps and failures and things that happen? And then it's not always just negative, but it's like, so even really, really good things. It's like, okay, that happened. It's not always negative. It's just like, it's giving yourself kind of a plan and just tools to continue going for when really, really highs happen and also really, really lows.
So like just kind of briefly, like if what language would you expect in a session to hear as an athlete or as an performing artist? When you go into somebody that uses that style, what are some things that they might say as a consultant to like start things off?
Definitely goal setting, and contingency planning, or like flexibility, because not everything like goes exactly how you plan. You can't predict literally everything. So it's just, again, getting to that acceptance phase where it's like, it's just being flexible and being able to take in those things that happen, because it's really easy to shut down when really bad things happen. I would say a lot of that type of language or acceptance based.
Okay, and then Ash, I know you mostly deal in the realm of CBT, so give me the rundown on that and what we can expect.
Yeah, so CBT stands for cognitive behavioral therapy. Basically, what this means is that like your thoughts impact your emotions, which impact your behavior. So the root of everything is like thoughts. So I always go to like thoughts, emotions, behaviors. I also throw in focus, like what are you paying attention to? But essentially, when I work with athletes, and performing artists, I always start with thoughts. Always, always, always. Because I need to know what's going through their mind when they're performing at their best, at their worst, when certain things happen, because that tells you a lot about how they respond to things. I will ask them like what are helpful thoughts and hurtful thoughts. So if they tell me a thought, it's not just is it positive or negative, it's did that help you or hurt you in that moment. Cuz I have some athletes who say stupid, why'd you just do that? And like it motivates them. And for some, right. I don't know why I say that to myself. Like it just makes me more mad at myself. So it's not about positive or negative, it's helpful versus hurtful. And so the question you asked Maddie of like what language would you see when I'm working with them, it would just be a lot of they tell me something happened. I will ask them like what were they thinking? What were they feeling? And based on those two things, what was the outcome? So if they were thinking something hurtful and they were feeling something that is a negative emotion that they have during their performance, did that lead to good performance or not good performance, right?
Sure.
And so I think it helps athletes. I think they like that visually because it's like, okay, if I control these two things, my thoughts and my emotions, the performance will be what I want it to be. So that's where I begin. I obviously do goal setting and contingency planning too, because I think those are very valuable tools, but like that's where I begin.
Okay. Yeah. And then if either one of you want to take the humanistic type of approach or if kind of explain as best you can what that would entail.
Yeah, it's been a while, but a humanistic approach is essentially you treat the human as a human being. You look at the person kind of like what Maddie's counselor did, where they looked at somebody and was like, well, what's the whole piece of the pie? What else is going on? And so they might look into like what's going on in other areas of life, not necessarily going outside of their scope per se, but like talking about like
your days and moods and those types of things are getting brought in to your sport or into your play and how they're affecting you and maybe even causing some of the things that you guys are working with. That's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, and like it's not just about like how good of a performer you are. Like there's other things going on. Like you're a human being, not just this like robot that's supposed to like score baskets or goals, you know? Which I think again has value to it. Like there's times I talk to my athletes about non-performance things because like something happened and that impacted their performance. So just because our approach doesn't mean that we don't do these other things that the other approaches do.
Yeah,
our approach is essentially just like what guides us. So like one of maybe potentially Maddie's first session would be like goal setting. Mine would be like thoughts. Like it's just where we begin. And I think the best consultants are ones that understand that like that there's value to the different approaches and you just have to like find people who have those other approaches to make sure you're doing the best you can for that client.
Yeah, Maddie, anything to add?
No, I think Ashley really nailed it there, like with humanistic and just like everything in total. Like she said, like a consultant really isn't just humanistic. They aren't just CBT. They're definitely a mix of everything. But I mean, like how you guys even just like broke down the issues that I was going through, like Ashley looked at it from a CBT standpoint. Like Zach, you looked at it more of a humanistic approach, and I looked at it acceptance based. Like we're all three here noticing issues, and like that's just kind of how it works in the sports psychology professional's mind. Is like they're all of these things, and they all need to be attacked from like different angles. But it's like you'll use different theories and types while you're consulting. So it's not just one or the other. It's definitely like a good blend of all of them based on what that athlete needs.
Yeah, and then
Sure.
exactly that last part's kind of the thing that I think Ashley is trying to hit home as well, is that you come in, you may relate to something as an athlete or a person, kind of how you did, Maddie, with yours. You liked one aspect versus the other, but at the end of the day, most of the consultants that you come across should be trained at least to talk about the things that you're experiencing or going through. So, yeah, and it all is kind of dependent on that. So, Maddie, we're still into the hard part. So now we had like the kind of like the spring time of your career. You had like this fantastic junior year. It's starting to go a little bit downhill. We're entering maybe a fall season, but do we get into like winter, or are we going somewhere a little better? So what's going on there?
Yeah, so we get into spring. That's when our season was, and worst season I've ever competed in. And I was like very upset with myself, but also weirdly fine because I was committed. I was going to play in college. Like I didn't really have a whole lot of pressure. And then we ended our season that year losing to a team that we definitely should have beat. And it was like, and we didn't go to state. Like we didn't even get into playoffs. And so it's kind of like oh my gosh, what just happened to us? But then it was over and we graduated, and then we all went to school. And it all happened like so fast because graduation was the same day that we lost. So it was just like, oh my gosh, we lost.
Oof.
Let's go graduate. So it was like, it was just the strangest like 24 hours in that day. But it's like my acceptance from like high school was very quick because I was very excited for college. I was ready to go and play in college and be at that collegiate level because I truly did not think that I would get to that level. I did not think that I was good enough. And I think that's also what stemmed with a lot of my issues is I never thought I was good enough to play in college, to play with the people I was playing with, and all of that. So I got told by an upperclassman before our season even started, I got told by an upperclassman, like, just so you know, you're a freshman, do not expect to play. She's like, it goes by rank and it goes by age. Just don't expect playing time. And so I'm walking in, I'm just like this happy-go-lucky freshman, like, okay, sounds good. Like I'm gonna go practice, I'm gonna do whatever I can, but I won't expect to play. And then like we have a short fall season in college, and then our real season is up in the spring. So like in fall, everybody gets to play. So I didn't really take anything to heart. Like got in a couple of games, didn't play a couple of games. Like it's kind of what's expected. And we got to the springtime, and I started every single game in the spring. And I remember getting to like the middle of the season, and I was just like, I never said anything to that senior. I never said a single word to her, but I was just like, an underclassman, like I'm playing, like look at this. And you told me not to expect anything. So my freshman year, I literally like I went in with no expectations at all. I had the best season my freshman year. Out of all four of them, my best one was my freshman year. I kind of had like an I don't care air to myself. Like I was just like, if I play, I play. That's fantastic. If I don't, I mean, that's just part of it. And then sophomore year was a lot like freshman year. I didn't have expectations. Did I want to play? Did I like really think I should play? Yes. I mean, everybody has that kind of like air to themselves too. So sophomore year was kind of the same as my freshman year. I was just going in there, doing my work, what I needed to get done, and I played. I started every game my sophomore year too. And then junior year is when everything went downhill because that's when you officially become an upperclassman is junior year. And so I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, these younger girls, these girls that are 2.5 years younger than me are coming in like they're going to take my spot. Like I have to be the best. And so I kind of got back in that same mindset that I got in my senior year of high school, is like, I have to work hard and I have to be the best. And so there's no real thing that like happened my junior, like not, there's no event, there's no trauma, there's no nothing like that. It was just like I was beating myself down, and I was getting told by the coaches, like, because my batting wasn't very good at all my junior year, and so I was told by them, like, we won't take you out of the game, your defense is too good to take you out. And then next thing I know, I'm like benched for the next couple of games, and I'm just like, what the heck was that? Like, where did that come from? And so it's just kind of like that happens, and so it kind of wore me down a lot. And I remember the specific moment where I was like, oh my gosh, need something. I need a little bit of help here. Was we were warming up for a game. It's like kind of towards the end of our season. So I knew that like playoffs were coming up and postseason was coming up. And I was so upset. It's like no athlete should ever be sad that their season is continuing. Like that's I don't know. That's not how athletes should be thinking, in my opinion. They shouldn't be wanting the end of their season. Like, I went into college wanting to push my softball career for as long as possible, because I know myself as well. I'm very self-aware that I'm not going to go and play professionally. That's just not going to happen. So it's like I have those 4 years and that was it. And for me to be wishing away my games, like, that kind of made me hit a wall. And we were warming up, and our coach would always throw us front toss before games, get us warmed up, ready, and everything. And I hit 3 balls. The first 2 were fine, and then the last one was like, it was a bad hit. I just mishit it, but it's warm up, so like it's not a big deal. I'm not in the game right now. And I had a mental breakdown right in the middle of the batter's box. I started crying, could not control it, and I just sat there. And I mean, coaches were like, okay, get out. Like, if you're going to be doing that, get out. And so I got out of the batter's box, and I just sat there, and I was just like, why? What is going on? What am I doing? And like, fast forward to me now, looking back on the situation, it was just months and months and months and weeks of me breaking myself down and constantly being like, you're not good enough. That's why you're not playing. You're not good enough. And I hit 1 bad ball in warm up, and I was like, that's why you're not playing. That was my thought process. And so it was just like self deprecating the entire time, like my entire junior year. And in that is the number one moment where I was like, no athlete should go through this. I remember that I walked off the field, I was crying, I walked off the field, could not tell you what was going on. And I was thinking, I finally composed myself, and I sat there. One of our assistant coaches came over and was just like, what can I do for you right now? What do you need? And I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I just sit here for a second. I just sat there, and I was like, wow, there should be somebody for this. Like, there's no way I'm the only person. Like, there's no way I'm the only person who's gone through something like this. Like, there's no way. And so from that moment on, I was like, I gotta do something. This can't be happening. Like, I can't do this to myself anymore. I honestly did not get better mentally, but I just kind of like pushed through to the end of the season. And I remember I spoke with my mom about it, and I was like, I think I need to see somebody. I think I need to do something. And she was like, okay, set up the appointments, like, let's do this. And I never did, because I knew exactly what happened in high school. But that's when I really started to like read more into sports psychology. That's when I really started to contact that professor a little bit more and be like, hey, like, what are your thoughts on this? And that's when I like literally looked up the word burnout, because that's all that came to mind was that word. I didn't hear it before. I had no idea what it was about, but I was just like, man, I just feel like done. I just feel so done with my sport right now. And so I did my whole entire project on athlete burnout. From there on, I kind of like really dove into sports psychology, because I've said it 100 times and I'll say it 100 more. No athlete should go through that, regardless of like skill level, regardless of like level of play, what you're playing, what you're doing. Even performers, like in the ballet or the circus or whatever, people go through like mental lapses. It happens, but they shouldn't. They should have, or if they do, they should have tools to help it. And so that's kind of like been my motivating factor from that moment on, that like more people need to be out there. There needs to be more resources out there. And I'm going to get on kind of a soapbox and like a tangent, but because we've spoken about it before, the how, like with all of the like deaths that have happened in sports in the past couple of years, I can't tell you how many times on Twitter I saw, we need resources, we need resources. Like schools need to be better, but nobody really gave the reason for a how. And I remember thinking to myself, I was just like, yes, this should not happen. Like these people need resources. And it's like, but the how, like, how do we get the resources? Who are the resources? Like they just said, we need it. And nobody gave like a plan or steps or directions or anything. So yes, yeah.
No, I love that. And it is like a powerful message to send because you're right. There's a lot that goes on in your young athletes or in your personal uh,
Mm-hmm.
listener's mind that can be worked on. It can be
Mm-hmm.
helped. Ashley, I want to kind of point it at you now because
Mm-hmm.
you just heard this story. I saw you react several times. Kind of give me the lowdown of like the what you were thinking about when she was saying stuff and like what areas you think you could take away from.
Yeah. I got a little emotional when Maddie was talking just because we did have very similar experiences. Like things she was saying related to what I felt during different times in my story. Specifically, where you shouldn't, no athlete should wish their season away.
Mm-hmm.
That's a true sign if like an athlete knows something's like this isn't normal. Like you
Mm-hmm.
should sports is a place I should be wanting to be a part of, right? That's burnout 101. So when she said burnout, as soon as you said, I'm like, yep, that's it. And one of it
Mm-hmm.
was there's multiple aspects of burnout. One of them being like overtraining. And overtraining can be like over exercising or just like not recovering enough. And we saw that maybe that was happening a little bit in high school. And then another piece of burnout is you don't look highly upon yourself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't think your performance is good enough, or like you just say terrible things pretty much about your performance. And I want to talk about the thing I noticed what Maddie said, the key phrase was her freshman and sophomore year, she kind of went in with like a no expectations, like I don't really
I don't
care.
care. Yep.
Yes. And there's this like false narrative in sport where you have to focus in order to be the best, or like train to be the best. And it's quality, not quantity. Quality practice, physical and mental,
Mm-hmm.
versus constantly focusing or constantly doing something, because that's when you physically or mentally burn out. And some people have to take the pressure away in order to perform well. For example, I've shared this before. I have an ice skater I worked with who watches Netflix right before she goes on. And some people would say, like, well, her head's not in the game. No,
Mm-hmm.
that's what she's doing to make sure her head is in the game. Because if she takes all that time in between warm ups and when she performs, which could be a couple of hours because she's waiting for other performers to go on, she's overthinking her performance.
Mm-hmm.
So, my point is that if somebody needs to watch Netflix or go in with like a I don't care mentality, it's not that they're lazy or that they don't care, that they're not ready. It's that they're trying to figure out their best mental space to be at their best.
Yeah, I remember a Shaq interview where he was talking about how much he cared in practice. He basically said that I didn't care at all in practice. I just goofed around the whole time because I wanted to be ready for the game. Why would I expend all of my energy in practice? But most coaches are going to be sitting there like yelling at you if
Mm-hmm.
you're not doing anything in practice, if you're goofing off, if you're doing whatever. But it worked for Shaq, and like that's part of it too. You got to know what works for you and be
Mm-hmm.
confident in that. Like know that that's what you need and communicate that and all that stuff is later. But at least being able to say, nope, I don't need to do X, Y, and Z that my coach says. I know that I can do that. And we did talk a little bit about that last week. But
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning, though, Ash, of her story, or like the beginning of the end, of her story. She mentioned some stuff about her coach and then some team issues, and I saw your eyebrows just go way up there. Like, what, like, why would they say that and do this, or what, walk me through what you were thinking there.
I think it was when she said that her teammate was like, just so you know, freshmen
Yes.
don't start, or it goes back to the comparison thing. Like, it really, really bothers me when, not bothers, like, it's normal, but it bothers me because I want athletes to have the mental confidence to, like, not compare, right? But they compare themselves to, like, I'm assuming she did that to intimidate, because what I think was going on, and I don't know this person, but usually when someone's trying to tear somebody else down, it's because they don't feel like they're good enough. And instead of calling that person a jerk, or like, oh, she needs help, it's like, yeah, she does need help. Like, I would want to work with that athlete, that upperclassman, and be like, how can I help you feel confident enough that you don't need to say that to an underclassman? Right? Like, how can I help you feel confident that you will play despite your age, despite how long you've been there? Like, if she didn't play, it's because she was not confident in herself, and Maddie played because she didn't care and was just going out there and doing her thing. And that's what happened, that's what I think.
Let's talk about care really quick. So, Maddie, retrospectively, what do you think you didn't care about freshman and sophomore that you did junior and senior?
The comparison thing was definitely huge. I compared myself to literally every single person that was threatening to take my position. I compared myself to them, like, with everything. But like freshman and sophomore year, I went in knowing that I could compete with those girls. I was told by a coach over the summer, he was like, yeah, you're going to compete at the collegiate level. Like, you can do that. And so that was like, you're right, I can do that. And so like when I was told like, you're not going to play, it's like, okay, like, I got this opportunity to play another 4 years. Like, if I play, I play. If I don't, that's just, I wasn't good enough. And so I just went in like, I know my talents, I know my capacity, and I know what I can do. And so that's like my freshman, sophomore year, I just didn't think about the other people who were also playing. Like, I thought about what I needed to do in that moment. Like, I need to catch this ball. I need to get a hit. I need to do this. I need to do that. It was always myself and game focused. Like, I cared about the game a lot, and I cared about my own abilities a lot, to where I was always staying after to work on trying to get better. Like, I care about my own abilities. And I think where that left and where I started caring more is I started caring about other people's abilities junior and senior year. Like, it kind of got away from being just about me, and it turned into, well, so-and-so is staying after and she's getting better and she's doing this and that. And it was comparing apples to oranges, because I was a slapper and some other people were power hitters. And honestly, from a coaching perspective now, like, some people are needed in certain situations that others aren't. And so when I would get taken out my junior and senior year, I thought it to be, oh my gosh, they think I'm terrible. But at the same time, like, from a coaching perspective, no, they didn't think that. They just saw bases loaded with a slapper up to bat and thought that a righty power hitter could probably produce a little bit more in that situation. Like, it's hindsight is so 2020, but like, me in that moment, like, as the athlete, I was like, I suck, I'm terrible, they're going to take my spot, I'm done playing for the rest of the year. It's like the snowballing catastrophic thinking that's what really hurt me the most. And then honestly, it took me coaching to be like, Maddie, wake up, like, read the situation. So it's just, I started caring about other people's abilities more than what I could control myself. And so, like, mentally, I was trying to control other people when all I can do is like what I have,
Yeah.
It's pretty exhausting worrying about yourself and others too.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead, Ash.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, obviously we're gonna talk about the fact that Maddie's a coach, and like, Maddie's like a coach, right? Like, she coaches collegiately, like, she's done it for years. So we're gonna get that perspective in a different episode. But I do want to dive into this piece since we're on the topic. You said that you can empathize with like an athlete having their thoughts spiral like, oh, they didn't play me, therefore I'm not going to play for the rest of the season, because like you experience that, I experience that. But then as a coach, you're like, no, there's a lot more that goes into that. Like, it's not just like, oh, she's better than her. It's like her strength will fit better in this situation. So to give a little bit of advice to coaches out there, what is the balance with like explaining why you make certain decisions? Because you and I have talked about, and I think that was a huge topic in our last episode of coach communication, like communicating why you do the things that you do. But I think sometimes when coaches hear that, they're like, every decision? Like, what? So, from a coach's perspective, how much should a coach communicate their decisions, and like, what does that look like? I think specifically when it comes to like playing time and like game time situations.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just gonna keep on piling on top of communication and also setting kind of a standard very, very early on. Like you can say a reason for your decision, but you do not, me personally, like, and I've talked with my head coach about this too, like you don't have to get into the nitty-gritty of the why. You need to say, I played her here because she is a big right-handed hitter, bases were loaded, and we thought that was best for the situation. Period. Done. Like you don't need to be because you're a smaller slapper and sometimes you hit the ball that you don't have to get into it. You just say, we saw the situation and we thought this was the best choice for the situation for the success of the team. Everybody has their strengths that are definitely needed at different parts in the game. And so that part, they needed somebody to do this. And then also, I think the other standard that you set for yourself and for your team from the very beginning is like, we are going to win as a team. You can be on board. And if you're not going to be on board, then like doors over there. But we are doing this all as a team.
I really, to summarize, it's be blunt, but you don't have to over explain. And I think it's about like in that moment where it's like, no, we needed to put her in because her strengths match that situation. That can kind of be like a comparison thing, but it's not. It's when you have that team mindset. Like everybody has their strengths. There's moments where certain strengths fit better. That doesn't mean your strength isn't valuable. It just wasn't for that moment. And that's okay. And so it's a very like strengths-based approach. Like you're focusing on what people have to offer versus like you're not good enough. Talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, well, to add to that, I think if you do explain the why more, there's a greater opportunity for them to be like, oh, I could do that. Like, oh yeah, I could do that. Oh, I could beat them out. You know, so it just fosters that more. Whereas you're like, you're good at this, they're good at this. We need both of you. You're both important. That's it. You know, like then we're both 100%. Happy.
Yes.
Was there any other thoughts that either one of you had about the story? Maddie, was there anything else you would like to share about your story?
I guess like the last kind of taking away point I would say is like, if you're an athlete or a coach, like, and you see that your athletes or yourself, you need some help, there are hundreds of resources out there. Like get on Google, start looking into it, like type in those keywords, and there's help out there, whether it's YouTube videos or worksheets that you find, like, or even talking to somebody at your school, or if you don't have it directly available to you, there's a lot out there. So just go looking for it. Honestly, Mastery literally, like on their website, has a bunch of resources. They're fantastic at helping athletes get what they need. It's not something that should be pushed to the wayside anymore. Like it is a very legitimate thing that's happening to a bunch of athletes and a bunch of teams and everybody. So get the resources and start somewhere. Like that's where my story started. I started with a Google search and here I am like preaching about it because it's so important. So do your Google searches. Like there's hundreds of resources out there.
I love that. Ashley?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's a reason that Maddie and I have a passion for this, and it's because, and I hope you can see from our stories that we really, really needed this. And so our hope is that our message gets shared to enough people that they're like, I need this, and it's like not too late. And as I said, I think last time too, a lot of consultants get into the field because they didn't have it. We want consultants to get into this field because they had it and they want to just like continue that. So
Yeah.
that's our goal.
Yep. That's a really awesome thing to say. I think next episode is going to be a juicy one as well because it'll be mine, and you guys get to break me down, basically in almost like a session like format. So it would give people a really great understanding and idea on how a session may or may not go, depending on who you get. So definitely stay tuned for that. Tune in, subscribe, do all the fun things that YouTubers tell you to do. Ring the bell and hit those notifications. So other than that, though, I think that wraps up episode 2. Once again, thank you, Maddie and Ashley, for being here. And we will see you in the next one.